Dana White, what's he like?
He's not your friend. Business is business, and he's a cutthroat guy. The pay gap in obviously boxing and UFC, and yet it is massive at the top. I think there should be a little bit of a better pay structure in the UFC. We should be paid a little bit better.
Dana White, obviously someone you've spoken with, worked with quite a lot. What's he like? He gets a lot of praise for his business skills.
Yeah, do you know what? He gets a lot of praise and he gets a lot of stick sometimes at the time as well. I think the thing with Dana, I think you have to look at Dana as what he is. He's not your friend. He's got his own friends. He lives in Las Vegas. He gambles. He goes out to the club. He eats food with his friends who he's grew up with. I don't know who they are. I don't care to know. But if you're an athlete in this business, or you're, say, let's a fighter or someone, you know, and you're in this business and you say, no, I've spoke to Dana. Dana's genuine. He's my friend. I'm not saying he's not a genuine guy, but Dana's in the business of business, making fights, making the biggest fights possible. He's talking now about making a fight at the Sphere.
Yeah.
Mexican Independence Day, I think.
Okay.
Said it's actually going to cost him money. Like that,
really?
That's the guy he is. He's a businessman. He wants to put on. He's a showman. So, do I think he's a genuine guy? Yeah. Do I think he's a nice guy? Yeah. But I think if it comes into business with Dana, I think he's cutthroat, and I think not on matters but business, and that he's not a bad guy for that. Business is business, and all the top businessmen around the world, I'm assuming, are in some sort of way the same. So I like him. I've got on with him. I've had food, just me and him. Seems like a nice guy, family man as well. But do I think he's my friend? I think he's got time for me. I think he would never say no to having a beer with me, but we're not friends. Yeah. It's business associates.
He's going to appreciate what you brought to the UFC, what you could potentially still bring in the future, and beyond that, he's not going to bend over backwards to help you out or any other fighter. He's got his
family, he's got his friends, he's got money. What does he need that until in his life? Unless it was one of them things where he thinks I'm just the best company on earth, you know. But ultimately, he's still got to keep that strict business relationship between fighter and as I say, you know, president of the UFC. So I don't knock him for the way he is. I don't knock him for the way he's been. Business is business.
I mean, that is very genuine. That is very open. He's not hiding that fact or anything like that.
I've seen him speak. I've seen the way he is. He's a cutthroat guy. He really is.
A lot of fighters that have left the UFC, whether they've been cut or, you know, retired or whatever, moved on, have been quite critical of the UFC and said they should be doing this and doing more for fighters. What do you think about that?
I think, again, it's a 50-50 because people talk about the pay gap in obviously boxing and UFC, and yet it is massive at the top. You know, you look at a guy like Canelo, he's getting 35 million a fight. Yeah. You look at a guy like John Jones, probably only ever had maximum 3-4 million, something like that, which is still a substantial amount. But what doesn't come with the boxing comes with the UFC, like fight week and facilities and medicals and stuff like that. That all comes with the UFC. So we have a fight centre in Vegas that we can train at. We actually have one now in Beijing, is it, China, and they just opened one in Mexico. There's a gym here in London, not that big, but it's in Nottingham. Fight week, the way you get treated, you get all your food, you've got a team running around backwards for you. You don't necessarily get that in boxing. So what's lacking in boxing and lacking in the UFC makes up for in both. So, but if I had to say, I think in my own personal opinion, I think there should be a little bit of a better pay structure in the UFC. We should be paid a little bit better. So UFC's only been around, you know, now since the 90s, the 2000s, they started becoming really big. Maybe in another 20, 30 years, it will be at that. Boxing's been around, like, you know, 1920s before that, stuff like that. So I think boxing's just ahead of the curve in terms of it's been around longer. Maybe UFC might just get to that. And Dana's smart, he knows how to do it, you know. But if I had to be critical, which I don't like being critical, I'd say pay gap between boxing and UFC is too big. We need to close that gap and get the UFC fighters paid a little bit better.
Would you change the structure of the pay as well? Because obviously there's been a lot of controversy over the years around sponsorship pay being changed and show money versus win money and things like that.
Yeah, the problem you've got is that the UFC have got a structure in place now where Venom is the main sponsor of the UFC, and I think Monster and stuff like that, where they pay the UFC an amount, and the UFC will like sort of divvy it away. The fighters don't get a hell of a lot of that, but I know in the past when I've been fighting, I've had massive offers of sponsorship, you know, to go on shorts and in the cage, where I've had to turn it down because Venom and that are there. So that's the only thing I'd say where it's been a bit annoying. Like this was in the past. This was like a construction company. They were actually in Dubai. They were a friend of a friend, and they were like, you know, we want to pay till this much. And I was like, what? Wow. For this UFC? But we want to be on the shorts. We're making a big bang. And I was saying to my friend, I was like, is there no way around this? Like, I can't put them on my shorts.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, they want to be in the cage. Like, this is what they're doing. And it was like, I had to turn the offer down. So that left a little bit of a bitterness in my mouth.
Are you able to say how much it was that they offered?
It's about 150,000.
Wow. Yeah. Just to have that on your shorts?
Because what they wanted to do, they wanted to pay that up front. They wanted to have it as like a yearly thing where they'd renegotiate in a year's time, because they were like, if he does 2 fights, 3 fights, we'll be on the shorts. They actually wanted to negotiate to do other business deals in Dubai and stuff like that. And I was just thinking, right, UFC pay 150 grand on top. Like, yeah, I need to do this. And then, you know, the cherry got cracked. It was like, there was no way around it. There was no way speaking to the UFC, because they have that deal in place. They signed that contract with Venom where it's all fighters in Venom. You know, there's no if, buts, maybes. It's you're in Venom, in Monster. The shoes, I think, were Reebok, and it was just one of them. I just had to turn the deal down.
Do you remember what you got sort of instead of that deal through the sponsorship that the UFC had arranged?
Well, I think I was main event at the time, so I think like Venom were paying like per fighter main event something like $20,000, something like that. Right. Which, you know, I'm not gonna turn my nose about.
But it's a lot less than what you could have had.
It's a lot less, and I know on the back of that, you know, at the time I had my socials, my Instagram had like 1.8 million at the time. My Twitter's always like been banging. I was big on like a lot of followers on Facebook as well. And it was like, I could have probably gathered 3 or 4 more sponsors as well, like to a good amount. So I could have walked away just off sponsorship with like, I don't know, 300, 400,000. Which is, that's just sponsorship.
Yeah.
So I know I could have gained that. I had a lot of strong business associates around me who were like, till we can get this, we can get that. So yeah, that's, if I could be critical, which I don't like being so critical.
It would be along that side.
Along that side, yeah.
Do you remember what your biggest payday was at the UFC?
I think it might have been for my title fight, like 354, something like that. Okay. Around that. 350, I think it was, plus sponsorship for the Reebok at the time and other little things you get. So yeah, I made a good chunk.
Yeah. But I imagine you would, given the name that you've got, you're now looking at the boxing options, particularly potentially influencer fights, thinking the purse can be a lot higher.
I'm just thinking millions and business and watches and cars. So yeah, it's time to sort of take advantage of my name, who I am, what I've been, what I am. And get these big fights. Why not? If everyone else can do it, why can't I do it?
This is just a small clip from my over 1 hour conversation with UFC star Darren Till. If you want to watch the full interview, you can do so right here.